The morning sky over New York City was clear and blue. People walked to work, sipped coffee, and checked their phones. It was a normal Tuesday until every screen in Times Square went black at exactly 9:17 a.m. 3 seconds later, they all turned, on again, showing the same image. A massive ship hovering above Earth. Captain Amanda Lewis had just finished her morning coffee in the Earth Defense Force headquarters when the alarms began to scream. She ran to the command center, her heart pounding in her chest. Status report. She yelled over the chaos of officers rushing to their stations. Lieutenant Joe Green pointed to the main screen. "Ma'am, unknown object in orbit. It appeared out of nowhere. No warning from our satellite network. It's huge." Amanda's mouth went dry as she stared at the image. The ship was unlike anything humanity had ever seen, almost as big as the moon, with strange metal skin that seemed to move like water. Light rippled across its surface in patterns that hurt the eyes if you looked too long. "How did it get past our early warning systems?" she asked. "Unknown, ma'am. 1 minute there was nothing, the next minute, this." Joe's voice cracked slightly. Amanda straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. "All stations battle ready," she ordered, knowing that if the aliens wanted a real fight, Earth's weapons wouldn't do much. But that wasn't the point. The point was to show that humans would not bow down without trying. "Send message to the White House. The president needs to see this immediately." In the White House Situation Room, President Frank Morgan sat at the head of the table. His face was serious, as stone as he looked at each person around him. The room was filled with America's most powerful people, military leaders, scientists, and government officials. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the air conditioning and the nervous tap of fingers on the table. "How long has it been there?" President Morgan finally asked. 47 minutes, sir," said General Bill Hall. "It hasn't moved or done anything yet." "What do we know about it?" Dr. Rita Nelson from NASA adjusted her glasses. "It's approximately 2,100 miles across, sir. The metal, if it is metal, seems to bend light around it. Our readings show energy levels that, well, frankly, they're off the charts. Nothing we have comes close to generating that kind of power. Weapons? Unknown," said General Hall. "But we have to assume they're armed. Something that size could probably wipe out the planet without much effort." The president nodded slowly. "And our options?" The room fell silent again. Finally, the Secretary of Defense spoke up. "We've put all military forces on high alert. Missiles are ready, fighter jets are in the air, but honestly, sir, if they came here to attack us, we wouldn't stand a chance. We're not going to just give up," Morgan said firmly. "This is our home." "Mr. President," called Olivia Wright, the communications director, who had been listening to something in her earpiece. "They're hailing us. The ship is sending a signal to all major broadcast frequencies worldwide." Everyone in the room looked at each other. This was it. First contact with an alien race. The moment humanity had wondered about for centuries. "Put them through," Morgan said, straightening his jacket. The large screen on the wall flickered to life. What they saw made several people gasp. The alien had a humanoid shape. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But that's where the similarities ended. Its skin was a deep purple with patterns that seemed to shift slightly. 6 eyes arranged in a perfect hexagon stared back at them without blinking. It wore armor that gleamed with symbols that seemed to move when no one was looking directly at them. "Greetings, primitives of Earth," the alien spoke in perfect English, its voice deep and smooth. "I am Grand Admiral Zexvor of the Galactic Imperium. Your solar system has been claimed as property of the Imperium. Prepare for integration into our empire. Your resources and labor will serve the greater glory of our civilization." The room fell completely silent. President Morgan slowly stood up, his hands flat on the table. "Admiral," he said, his voice calm but firm. "This is President Frank Morgan of the United States of America, speaking on behalf of Earth. Let me be perfectly clear. Earth belongs to humanity. We are not for sale. We are not for conquest, and we are certainly not your property. Your claim is rejected." Admiral Zexavor's 6 eyes blinked one after another in a circle. You misunderstand, Primitive. This is not a negotiation. This is your notification. The Imperium has claimed over 10,000 worlds. None resist us for long. President Morgan didn't back down. Then we'll be the first, he replied. You are not welcome here. The alien's head tilted slightly. Interesting. Most species understand their position immediately. Perhaps humans require a demonstration. Without warning, a beam of intense blue light shot down from the ship. It hit the Pacific Ocean about 50 miles off the coast of California. When the light faded, a perfect circle of water 2 miles wide had simply vanished, leaving a hole so deep the bottom couldn't be seen. That was a minimal power setting, Zexavor said. The next demonstration will remove one of your smaller cities. You have 6 Earth hours to announce your surrender to your population. After that, we begin removing resistance. The screen went black. The room exploded into noise, people shouting questions, demands, suggestions all at once. President Morgan raised his hand for silence. Get me the UN Secretary General, he ordered, and the leaders of China, Russia, India, and the European Union. If Earth is going to fight, we need to do it together. As people rushed to follow his orders, Morgan walked to the window and looked up at the sky. The ship wasn't visible from here, but he could feel its presence, an enormous threat hanging over every person on the planet. We are not giving up our home, he whispered to himself. Around the world, people reacted to the news of the alien ship with everything from panic to disbelief. In London, crowds gathered in parks to look up at the sky. In Beijing, the military moved tanks into the streets. In Rio de Janeiro, churches filled with people praying. At the UN headquarters in New York, an emergency meeting had been called. Leaders from every country on Earth watched the recording of Zexivor's message. When it ended, the Secretary General stood up. For the first time in human history, she said, we face a threat that doesn't care about our borders or our differences. Today we are not citizens of different countries. We are citizens of Earth, and I propose that we answer with one voice. The vote was unanimous. Earth would not surrender. As the 6-hour deadline approached, Captain Amanda Lewis stood on the roof of the Earth Defense Force headquarters. The alien ship was visible now, a dark shape blocking the stars. So it begins, she said softly. The first interstellar war in human history. She didn't know if humanity could win against such advanced technology. But she knew one thing for certain: they would fight with everything they had. Earth belonged to humans, and they would make sure the Galactic Imperium never forgot that fact. Dr. Eric Daniels rubbed his tired eyes. The clock on the wall showed 3:27 a.m., but he hadn't noticed the time pass. He hadn't slept in 3 days, not since the aliens had arrived and changed everything. The lab around him was a mess of equipment, coffee cups and papers covered with notes. Screens showed strange cells and chemical formulas. As Earth's top scientist in the study of alien life, a job that hadn't been very important until this week, he now had the weight of humanity on his shoulders. Find anything? Asked Major Lisa Kelly from the doorway. Her uniform was wrinkled and dark circles framed her eyes. No one in the military was sleeping much either. Eric nodded slowly and waved her over to his microscope. Take a look at this. Lisa bent down and peered through the lens. She saw strange purple cells that seemed to move slightly even though they were dead. What am I looking at? She asked. These are cells from the Imperium species, Eric explained. We got them from the samples they shared during their so-called peace talks. The peace talks had been a joke. After Earth refused to surrender, the Imperium had pretended to want to negotiate. But everyone knew they were really just trying to learn about Earth's defenses and look for weaknesses. Watch what happens when I add this, Eric said. He used a dropper to add a clear liquid to the sample. Immediately, the purple cells shriveled up and stopped moving. What did you do to them? Lisa asked, impressed. I added ozone, Eric said, a small smile forming on his face. Just a tiny amount, and look what happened. He pointed to another screen showing chemical reactions. The Imperium species can't handle ozone. It's toxic to them. Even small amounts damage their cells. Lisa's eyes widened as she understood. And Earth's atmosphere has the highest natural ozone concentration they've ever seen on any inhabited world. Eric finished her thought. That's why they're always wearing those fancy suits when they meet with us. That's why they always want our people to come to their ships for meetings instead of coming down to Earth. This could be the advantage we need, Lisa said, excitement clear in her voice. It's more than that, Eric replied. It means they can't just move in and take over. They'd need to change our entire atmosphere first, which would take years. It buys us time. Across the world, other discoveries were being made as humans studied everything they could about their enemy. In a secret facility under the mountains of Colorado, engineer Sam Harrison stood back from his workbench and smiled. He had been studying pieces of metal that had fallen from Imperium ships during their small battles with Earth forces. I've got it, he told his team. Their faster-than-light drive creates quantum disruptions that their shields can't fully contain. He pointed to his readings. See these patterns? Every time they jump to light speed, there's a split second when their shields weaken. If we can time our attacks just right. In a military base in South Africa, Lieutenant Diane Rogers had made a different but equally important discovery. She had been listening to the Imperium's communications, studying the patterns in their signals. They use a predictable sequence, she explained to her commander. Every message has the same structure. Once we crack it, we can not only listen to them but also send fake orders. Her commander's smile was fierce. How long until you can do that? Give me 3 more days, Diane replied. Perhaps the most important discovery came from Dr. Paul Martinez, a behavior expert who had studied the videos of every meeting with the Imperium representatives. He now stood before the United Nations Security Council, explaining his findings. The Imperium has a fatal flaw, he said to the room full of world leaders. They've never been told no before. The room was silent as everyone listened carefully. I've studied their body language, their words, their reactions. Their entire empire is built on one simple idea, that their technology makes them unbeatable, so everyone should just give up. Paul showed video clips of the aliens during negotiations. Look at how confused they were when we refused to surrender. See how Grand Admiral Zexavor blinks his eyes in that circular pattern? That's their version of surprise or confusion. He switched to another clip. And here, when President Morgan said we would fight back, the Admiral's skin color darkened. That's their sign of stress or anger. They literally don't know what to do when someone stands up to them. They don't have plans for dealing with extended resistance. The representative from Brazil raised her hand. So what happens when we continue to refuse? Paul smiled. They'll have to make new plans. They'll have to think on their feet. And based on everything I've seen about their culture and their strict chain of command, improvisation is not their strong suit. The Imperium runs on rules and order. Change disrupts them. So our resistance itself is a weapon, said the representative from India thoughtfully. Exactly, Paul nodded. Every day we hold out confuses them more. But there's something else important I've noticed. He showed a new clip of the aliens talking among themselves, not realizing they were being recorded. They're afraid of us, he said. Look at their posture, the way they keep their distance from our representatives. They think we're unpredictable and dangerous. They don't understand why we're willing to die rather than submit. The UN Secretary General leaned forward. Can we use this fear? Yes, Paul said firmly. Fear makes them cautious. They could have attacked more aggressively by now, but they're holding back, studying us, trying to understand what they're dealing with. Later that day, all these experts gathered with military leaders in a secure room deep under the Pentagon. They shared their findings and began to form a plan. So, General Rosa Martinez summarized, they can't survive in our atmosphere. Their ships have a weakness when they jump to light speed. Their communications can be hacked, and psychologically they don't handle resistance well and they're afraid of us. She looked around the room at the tired but determined faces. It's not much against their superior technology, but it's a start. Captain Amanda Lewis spoke up from her seat at the table. There's one more thing. Our smaller ships have been doing better against them than expected. At first, we couldn't figure out why, but now we know. Earth's magnetic field and atmospheric conditions interfere with their targeting systems. They literally can't aim straight in our environment. They can't hit what they can't see. General Martinez nodded. Good. Dr. Eric Daniels stood up next. I've been working on something else too. He placed a small device on the table. This can detect Imperium soldiers even when they use their cloaking technology. It senses the energy field their suits create to protect them from our atmosphere. How many of these can you make? The general asked. With the right resources? Thousands by the end of the week. The mood in the room had changed. For the first time since the massive alien ship had appeared in Earth's orbit, there was a feeling of hope. The Imperium made a big mistake when they came here, Captain Lewis said, looking around the table. They thought we would be easy to conquer. They thought we would give up. They were wrong. Now, General Martinez said, we need to make them regret ever hearing the name Earth. Steve Bennett walked through what was left of his cornfield. The golden stalks that had stood tall just a week ago were now crushed flat where the alien shuttle had landed. A small group of local people followed behind him, carrying hunting rifles, shotguns, and homemade weapons. Never thought I'd be leading something like this, Steve said to his neighbor, Will Cooper. I'm just a farmer from Iowa. Will nodded, adjusting the strap of his rifle. We're all just regular folks, but this is our home. The Imperium had started landing troops in rural areas 3 days ago. They had expected to take over Earth's farmlands easily, thinking country people would be simple to control. It was their first big mistake. They're just around this bend, whispered Maria Rodriguez, who had been scouting ahead. 4 of them. They've set up some kind of scanning equipment. Steve nodded and signaled to the others. They had done this twice before. The aliens might have advanced technology, but they didn't know this land. They didn't know where the creek flooded each spring, leaving soft mud that looked solid. They didn't know about the old hunting paths that weren't on any map. Remember, Steve told the group, aim for their suits first. Once the suits are damaged, our air does the rest. The small group of farmers and townspeople spread out through the corn. They weren't soldiers, but they were fighting for their homes. Sometimes that was enough. High above Earth, Captain Amanda Lewis directed her small fleet of space fighters against the massive Imperium warships. The battle seemed impossible to win. The alien ships were huge, with weapons that could destroy mountains. But Earth's smaller vessels had one unexpected advantage. Echo Squadron, dive into Sector 4, she ordered from her command ship. Use the magnetic distortion field. Copy that, came the response. Diving now. On her screen, Amanda watched as the small Earth ships plunged toward the planet, then pulled up just as they reached a particular layer of the upper atmosphere. The Imperium ships following them suddenly had their targeting systems go wild. Their weapons fired but hit nothing. They can't hit what they can't track, Amanda told her crew with a small smile. Earth's unique electromagnetic environment played havoc with the Imperium's sensors. It wasn't much, but in a fight this one-sided, they needed every advantage. Captain, the Lincoln and the Gandhi have been hit, her communications officer reported. They're going down. Amanda closed her eyes briefly. More good people lost. Send rescue teams, she ordered, and tell Delta Squadron to cover their retreat. This wasn't a war they could win with direct attacks. But every minute they kept the Imperium busy in space was another minute for the scientists on the ground to work on their plans. In laboratories across the world, those scientists worked without rest. In London, Dr. Linda Powell mixed chemicals, carefully, her hands steady despite her exhaustion. The compound is ready for testing, she told her team. This should degrade the material in their environmental suits within minutes of contact. In Tokyo, programmer Gary White stared at his computer screen, the code reflecting in his glasses. The virus is complete, he said to the military officers watching him. When we upload this to their communication network, it will create false orders and reports. Their own troops won't know what's real anymore. And in the most heavily guarded facility on Earth, hidden deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, a team led by Dr. Kyle Martinez worked on something much bigger. Hand me the alien power cell, Kyle said, reaching out without looking up from his work. An assistant carefully placed a glowing blue cube in his hand. Kyle fitted it into a device that looked like a mess of Earth electronics mixed with alien parts. "Will it work?" asked General Rosa Martinez, who had come to check on their progress. "In theory?" "Yes," Kyle answered. "We've reverse-engineered enough of their technology to understand the basics. This device should create a field that their weapons can't penetrate." "A shield," the general said, impressed. "A temporary one," Kyle corrected. "The power requirements are enormous. It won't last forever." "It doesn't need to," the general replied. "It just needs to last long enough." For 60 days, the war for Earth had raged. The Imperium had expected a quick victory. They had expected humans to surrender after seeing their power. Instead, they faced resistance everywhere they turned. In cities, people fought block by block. In mountains, guerrilla fighters struck and disappeared. At sea, submarines attacked Imperium ships and vanished into the deep. And in space, Earth's outmatched fleet somehow continued to fight. President Frank Morgan stood before cameras to address the people of Earth. His face was thinner than before, his eyes tired, but determined. "My fellow citizens of Earth," he began. "For 2 months we have endured the Imperium's attacks. They expected us to surrender in hours. They expected us to beg for mercy. Around the world, people watched on whatever screen still worked. In bomb shelters and basements, in military bases and refugee camps. Instead," Morgan continued, "humanity has shown what we have always known about ourselves. We don't give up. We don't take kindly to bullies. And we fight hardest when our backs are against the wall." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "Today, we activate the planetary shield. Our scientists and engineers have created something the Imperium thought impossible, a defense against their weapons." In the mountain facility, Dr. Kyle's team made final adjustments to their device. When the president gave the signal, Kyle pressed his hand against a scanner. The massive machine began to hum, vibrating the floor beneath their feet. "Power levels rising," reported a technician. 50%, 70%, 90%. Shield activating now." Above them, outside, a shimmering field of energy expanded from the device. It grew outward in all directions, a translucent dome of shifting light that spread until it covered the entire planet. The Imperium's bombardment, which had been constant for days, suddenly stopped reaching the surface. In his command ship, Grand Admiral Zexvor received increasingly desperate reports from his officers. "Admiral, our weapons cannot penetrate the shield they've created," said one. "Our ground forces are being attacked by primitives with simple weapons," said another. "They're targeting our environmental suits. We've lost contact with our base in their region called Australia," reported a third. "All troops there have gone silent." Zexvor's 6 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "Impossible," he muttered, pacing the command deck. "They are savages with primitive technology. They should have surrendered immediately." His second in command approached cautiously. "Admiral, there is a transmission from their president." The large screen lit up, showing President Morgan's face. He looked tired but confident. "Admiral Zexvor," Morgan said calmly, "I've been authorized by the United Nations to deliver our final message. You have 24 hours to withdraw all forces from our solar system." Zexvor's facial appendages quivered with rage. "Or what, primitive?" Morgan smiled, and it wasn't a friendly smile. "Or we show you why it was a mistake to teach humans how your technology works." The screen went dark, leaving Zexvor staring at his own reflection. For the first time since the invasion began, the Grand Admiral felt something new: doubt. Grand Admiral Zexvor stood at the large window of his command ship, looking down at the blue planet below. Earth was beautiful from space. Oceans of blue, swirls of white clouds, and green and brown land. Its beauty had been one of the reasons the Imperium wanted it. But now, that beauty was protected by a shimmering shield that his most powerful weapons couldn't break. How had this happened? Zexvor hadn't reached his high position by being stupid. He knew when to recognize a serious problem. The invasion of Earth should have been routine. Just another Class 3 planet with basic space travel capabilities that would quickly surrender when faced with the Imperium's power. Every report, every analysis had said the same thing. Earth should have been conquered within days. Instead, these humans had fought back with a determination he had never seen before. They had adapted to Imperium technology at an alarming rate. They had united despite their previous political differences. And most disturbing of all, they had begun to use weapons and defenses that they shouldn't have been able to create with their level of technology. "Admiral," his science officer interrupted his thoughts, "we've detected unusual activity in their asteroid belt." Zexvor turned from the window. "Show me." The main screen lit up, showing images from their long-range scanners. A swarm of small spacecraft were moving among the asteroids. The ships were clearly of human design, but they had been modified with elements of Imperium technology. The humans were attaching devices to the asteroids, changing their paths. "What are they doing?" Zexvor asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Based on the new trajectories," the science officer reported, "they appear to be directing these asteroids toward our fleet." "They wouldn't," Zexvor whispered, but he knew they would. These humans were preparing to launch asteroids at his ships, a simple but potentially devastating tactic. The larger asteroids could cause serious damage even to Imperium vessels if they hit at high speed. "Time until first asteroid impact?" he asked. "Approximately 12 hours, Admiral." Zexvor's 6 eyes blinked rapidly. 12 hours to make a decision. At that moment, another officer approached. "Admiral, there's something else. The human shield has begun emitting specific frequencies that are interfering with our life support systems." The officer handed over a data pad showing energy readings. Zexvor studied them with growing concern. The shield wasn't just defensive, it was now actively attacking his ships. The frequencies were precisely targeted to disrupt the systems that kept his crews alive. Somehow the humans had analyzed Imperium technology and found weaknesses no one else had ever discovered. "How long until life support fails?" he asked. "At the current rate of disruption, critical systems will begin to fail in 16 hours. Zexvor felt the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. If he stayed to fight, he risked losing his entire fleet to either asteroid impacts or life support failure. If he retreated, it would be the first defeat for the Imperium in 10,000 years of expansion. "Prepare the fleet for withdrawal," he said finally. His officers stared at him in shock. The Imperium never retreated. "Admiral," his second-in-command protested, The Emperor is not here." Zexvor snapped, his skin darkening with stress. "I am, and I will not sacrifice this fleet to these anomalies." He gestured to the planet. "Below. The humans have proven themselves to be unlike any species we have encountered. They adapt too quickly. They find weaknesses we didn't know existed. They refuse to follow the normal patterns of conquest." Zexvor turned back to the window, watching Earth rotate slowly below. "We will withdraw to the edge of this solar system. We will study what went wrong. We will prepare a new strategy. And then perhaps we will return with a force so large that even these humans cannot resist." But in his heart he wasn't sure even that would be enough. As the Imperium ships began to pull away from Earth orbit, the planet erupted in celebrations. In cities and towns around the world, people poured into the streets, hugging strangers and waving the flags of their countries alongside a new flag, the Earth United symbol that had become the sign of humanity's resistance. In the White House, President Morgan watched the retreating ships on a large screen. "Are they really leaving?" he asked. General Rosa Martinez nodded. "Our tracking shows them moving out past the moon's orbit. They're definitely pulling back." "Will they return?" "Almost certainly," the general replied honestly. "But we'll be ready. Every day we learn more about their technology. Every day we get stronger." Morgan nodded. "Then we need to send them a message. Something they'll remember." 2 hours later, a global broadcast began. It wasn't from President Morgan this time, but from the United Nations. The broadcast was being sent not just to Earth but into space on all frequencies, ensuring the retreating Imperium ships would receive it. The broadcast showed a large room filled with representatives from every nation on Earth. At the podium stood Dr. Carol Evans, a respected scientist who had helped create the SHIELD technology. To the Galactic Imperium and any other spacefaring civilizations who might be watching, she began, her voice calm and clear. Earth is hereby declared a sovereign, protected world. Behind her, the flags of all Earth's nations stood alongside. The new Earth United flag, a blue field with the image of the planet without borders surrounded by a protective circle. We are not an aggressive species by nature, Dr. Evans continued. We have no interest in conquest or expansion at the expense of others, but we have shown that we will defend ourselves with absolute resolve. The camera panned across the room, showing the determined faces of people from every corner of the planet. To put it simply, mess with humanity at your own peril. Dr. Evans paused, then finished firmly. You are not welcome here. The broadcast ended with a final image. The New Earth United flag flying over a landscape showing buildings from different cultures across the planet. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer divided. They had found unity in the face of a common threat. On his ship, Grand Admiral Zexvor watched the human broadcast with his officers. When it ended, he sat in silence for a long moment before speaking. Update the Imperium database, he ordered finally. Earth is to be reclassified from a Class 3 civilization to a Class 1 Omega. His officers looked at each other in surprise. Class 1 Omega was a rare designation, reserved for worlds, considered too dangerous to approach. In the 10,000-year history of the Imperium, only 3 other planets had received this classification. Are you certain, Admiral? His second-in-command asked. I am, Zexvor replied. These humans have done what no other species has managed. They've forced the Imperium to retreat. They deserve both our caution and our respect. As the fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving Earth's solar system behind, Zexvor added a personal note to his official report. Underestimating humans is a mistake no one should make twice. Back on Earth as the celebration continued, Captain Amanda Lewis stood on the roof of the Earth Defense Force headquarters, looking up at the stars. The shield still shimmered overhead, a reminder of what humans could accomplish when united. What happens now? Asked Lieutenant Joe Green, who had joined her. Amanda smiled. Now we prepare. We learn everything we can from their technology. We build better ships, better weapons, and eventually we go to the stars ourselves. To fight the Imperium? Joe asked. Maybe, Amanda replied. Or maybe to find allies, to trade, to explore. But whatever we do, we'll do it on our terms, not theirs. For the first time in its history, humanity was truly united, looking to the stars not with fear but with determination and hope. They would go to the stars on their own terms, or not at all.